This unique story begins with a little girl, a tiny ball of cuteness who could probably melt a villain's heart with her grin. One fine day, her grandmother gifted her a bright red hood, and the girl adored it so much that she practically welded it to her head. From that day onward, everyone began calling her Little Red Riding Hood. Time drifted by, and our Red grew up. One morning, she was walking through the forest, perhaps humming her favorite tune, when a witch suddenly appeared on her path and gestured for her to come closer. Red, being the kind of girl who preferred not to talk to strangers with suspicious hats, decided to ignore her and walk past. The witch's ego, however, wasn't as strong as her magic. With a dramatic flick of her hand, she shouted furiously, demanding how this little mortal dared to ignore her. The witch then called out again, telling her to stop because she wanted to show her a spell. Red, stubborn as ever, kept walking until the witch's persistence finally made her pause. The witch smirked and said she knew the girl had a long way to go, but those worn-out shoes wouldn't survive the journey. She offered to magically transform them into something more comfortable. But when she began her so-called amazing spell, instead of glowing shoes, they turned into filthy, mud-covered disasters. Red looked down at the mess and gave the witch an earful before sitting by a stream to wash them herself. Yet, just as she began scrubbing, her shoes started drifting away with the current, as if they had suddenly decided to go on their own vacation. Chasing after the runaway shoes, she finally reached a clearing where she saw another girl who had quite casually put them on. That girl was in the middle of burying a pigeon. The girl introduced herself as Cinderella. When Red asked for her shoes back, Cinderella apologized, explaining that she thought someone had thrown them away. After putting her shoes back on, Red noticed how miserable Cinderella looked, and in that moment, a strange vision flashed before her eyes. Through those visions, Red learned everything about Cinderella's tragic life, her cruel stepmother and stepsisters who forced her to cook, clean, wash clothes, and wear their old rags. Even her name was an insult. The word Cinder meant ashes, and Rella meant covered in soot, a name no girl would ever choose willingly. Overwhelmed with emotion, Cinderella broke down, confessing how exhausting it was to be treated like nothing. Despite working tirelessly every day, her stepfamily still called her useless. Meanwhile, her two stepsisters were gleefully discussing the royal ball, what they would wear, how they would outshine everyone. When Cinderella timidly asked if she could come along, they first burst into laughter and then cruelly refused. They claimed she was far too ugly to be seen in public with them. Ironically, their definition of ugly was as shallow as a puddle in summer. As if the humiliation weren't enough, Cinderella's pigeon, her only friend, began pecking at her sister Ubi's food. In a fit of rage, Yumi grabbed the bird, hurled insults at its looks, and killed it. Back in the present, Red was horrified. She asked if beauty really mattered so much here. Cinderella replied with a weary nod, explaining that in her world, only the beautiful were treated kindly, while the so-called ugly were despised. She added that this was why she wanted to marry the prince, because he was one of the rare men who saw everyone as equal. Red was puzzled. She asked whether Cinderella truly wished to marry a man she didn't even know. Cinderella smiled sadly and said that only he could free her from all her suffering. Hearing her speak so fondly of the prince, Red decided she would help her new friend attend the royal ball. But Cinderella hesitated, worrying about her shabby dress and worn-out shoes. When Red looked down, she noticed painful cuts on Cinderella's feet. Cinderella explained she had hurt herself while picking berries in the forest. As the two were talking, a familiar figure appeared, the same black witch. This time, she offered help with an unsettling grin, claiming she could give Cinderella the most beautiful dress ever made. She bragged that no one could outdo her in the art of magic. With a dramatic wave of her hand, the witch transformed Cinderella's rags into a magnificent gown. For the first time, Cinderella looked breathtakingly radiant. Impressed, Red asked if she could also get a similar dress, since she was going to the party too. The witch nodded and repeated her spell, dressing Red in something equally dazzling. However, despite her talent, the Black Witch still couldn't manage to fix their shoes. The girls exchanged worried glances. No one wanted to attend a royal ball looking like they'd trekked through a swamp. Just then, another witch appeared, this one clad in white, introducing herself as the White Witch. With calm confidence, she offered to craft them glass slippers, claiming her magic was flawless. But there was one condition. Before she began, Cinderella had to wear another pair of shoes. After some convincing, Red persuaded the Black Witch to lend hers. Reluctantly, the witch agreed. Then, with a swirl of light, the White Witch cast her spell, and in an instant, both girls stood in sparkling glass shoes that shimmered like morning dew. Watching the White Witch's success, the Black One couldn't hide her jealousy. Determined to prove herself, she quickly turned a mouse into a coachman and a pumpkin into a golden carriage, insisting that her magic would take them to the ball faster. But she warned them to return before midnight, for her enchantment would vanish at exactly 12. The White Witch simply smirked, saying her magic, unlike her rivals, lasted a full 24 hours. Well, both of them finally set out for the grand party. Cinderella couldn't stop expressing her gratitude to Red for making this moment possible. After all, without her, the night would have remained a mere dream. Red brushed it off modestly, pretending it was no big deal, right before fate decided to pull one of its classic pranks. Out of nowhere, their carriage collided with someone. When they stepped out to see what had happened, their hearts nearly stopped. The man had died on the spot, and he wasn't just anyone. He was Han, one of the palace's most famous head racers. Cinderella froze, whispering that she recognized him. Red panicked instantly. What if they were caught? Would they miss the party, or worse, end up in prison before the dance even began? But then, Red's eyes widened. Another vision flickered before her, showing that Han's death hadn't happened just now. Someone had already killed him earlier and thrown his body in front of their carriage to frame them. The real culprit was out there, probably sipping wine somewhere and thanking their luck. Time, however, wasn't on their side. It was already nearing midnight, the hour when all magic would vanish. So, Red made a quick decision. They would hide the body for now and inform the guards later. Right now, getting Cinderella to the party was more important. After all, chances like this didn't come twice. So they hid the body, fixed their dresses, and made their way to the palace. At the entrance, a guard was rudely refusing entry to an unfortunate woman, calling her too plain for royalty. Yet the same guard practically rolled out a red carpet for Cinderella and Red. As they entered, the ballroom was alive with music and laughter. Everyone was dancing, unaware of the bizarre drama that had just unfolded outside. But soon, people began to stare. Every eye in the room turned to Cinderella. She shifted nervously, wondering why everyone was looking. Red smiled and whispered that it was simply because she looked breathtaking tonight, so beautiful that even chandeliers were jealous of her glow. Suddenly, Cinderella spotted her stepmother and stepsister. Panic struck her like lightning. What if they recognized her? But thankfully, that was impossible. Her look tonight was completely transformed, that no trace of the old Cinderella remained. Meanwhile, her stepsister Anna was flaunting a new hairstyle done by none other than Han, the same Han who was now dead. He had cut her hair short, claiming that the prince adored girls with short hair. But poor Anna wasn't feeling confident at all. Her mother, however, pushed her forward, reminding her that sacrifices were the price of catching a prince. Soon the king appeared, his son, the prince, standing beside him. The crowd buzzed with excitement. The king announced that tonight, whichever lady the prince chose to dance with would become his princess. Cheers erupted across the hall, but to Red, the prince himself looked bored. Like he'd rather be solving algebra than choosing a bride. That is, until his eyes landed on Cinderella. His expression changed instantly. He approached her and asked her to dance. Cinderella was speechless, but somehow found herself nodding. The next moment, they were dancing together, elegant, rhythmic, and completely lost in each other. Cinderella could hardly believe it was real. Red watched from a distance, feeling genuinely happy for her friend. But her joy faded when she noticed something odd. Several other girls were wearing glass shoes too. It didn't take long for her to realize what was happening. The White Witch hadn't just gifted Cinderella the magic, she had handed it out like festival coupons to multiple girls. The party was in full swing when a guard rushed in, breathless, announcing that Han's body had been found in the forest. His injuries suggested he'd been struck by a carriage. The crowd gasped. The king immediately ordered that all carriages be inspected, and whichever one had blood on it would belong to the killer. Guards began checking every carriage, while the guests were told to stay inside. Cinderella's heart started racing. Red calmly reassured her that she had already asked their driver to clean the bloodstains. Just then, the driver arrived and confirmed it. Cinderella finally exhaled in relief. But as they stood there, the clock ticked toward 11, only 1 hour before the magic would vanish. Cinderella grew anxious again. What if her true form was revealed in front of everyone? She wanted to leave immediately, but Red stopped her, warning that escaping now would make them look suspicious. It was safer to stay put. Moments later, the commander arrived with an update. All the carriages had been checked, but none bore any blood marks. However, when the palace doctor examined Han's body, they discovered something alarming. The head injury was much older than it appeared, which meant he was already dead before the carriage hit him. A search of Han's house revealed more evidence that bloodstains and even strands of a woman's hair tied with a distinctive ribbon. Cinderella instantly recognized it. It belonged to Anna, her stepsister. The commander speculated aloud. Perhaps Han, despite his fame as a hairdresser, had accidentally ruined a lady's hair, and in a fit of rage, she'd killed him. The crowd murmured in agreement, nodding as if they'd personally witnessed the crime. Soon, every girl with short hair was summoned forward for questioning. Before anyone could wrongly accuse an innocent girl, Red stepped forward with quiet determination. She said she had something important to reveal, and the entire hall turned to her in surprise. With a calm but confident tone, she explained that each of the hair strands found in Han's house still had ribbons tied to them. Normally, when a girl decides to cut her hair willingly, she unties her ribbons first, which clearly meant that Han must have snipped those locks without their permission. Anna immediately agreed, saying she had experienced the same. That morning, she had visited Han full of excitement, thrilled that her mother had spent so much money to get her styled by the most renowned hairdresser in the kingdom. But instead of asking what she wanted, he had abruptly chopped off her long, beautiful hair, claiming the prince had a soft spot for girls with short hair. Since the matter involved royal preferences, she had chosen silence over self-respect. Hearing this, Cinderella's stepmother clutched her chest as if she were performing in a tragic opera. She declared that her daughter had sacrificed her beauty for the prince's happiness. So clearly, she was the one destined to be his wife. Other girls in the crowd immediately joined the melodrama, insisting that they too had cut their hair for the prince and were equally qualified for royal matrimony. It looked less like a royal gathering and more like a beauty salon riot. But the prince, clearly unimpressed by the chaos, interrupted firmly. He revealed that he had heard a rumor. Han used to feel jealous of those beautiful-haired girls who were not his clients, and in envy, he often chopped their hair without consent. The hall buzzed with murmurs of disbelief until Anna raised her voice again, saying she knew something even more disturbing. She confessed that after getting her hair styled that morning, she had sneaked into the palace with the help of her mother's friend, who happened to be a maid there. The king's eyes widened in shock. He demanded to know how she had dared to enter the palace uninvited and what her true intention was. Anna explained, trembling yet bold, that she had only wanted to meet the prince and tell him to choose her for the dance. But before she could find him, she overheard something strange, loud voices arguing from inside the prince's chamber. According to her, it was the prince and Han in a heated quarrel. The prince, now visibly tense, admitted that this was true. Earlier that morning, when Han had come to fix his hair, the two had indeed argued. The prince confessed that he had discovered a strand of his lover's hair in Han's possession. Furious and heartbroken, he was about to inform the king when Han had silenced him with a threat. If the prince dared to reveal this, Han would expose a scandal of his own, the one about the prince accidentally breaking the royal crown a year ago. The revelation hit like thunder. The king's expression hardened as he turned to his son, asking if he was truly the one who had broken the crown. His voice carried both disbelief and fatherly anger. The prince could barely meet his gaze. The king accused him of doing it for that mysterious girl he once loved. He also insisted he had told the prince countless times that he didn't know where the girl had gone. The story of that forbidden love unfolded before everyone. A year ago, the prince had fallen for the daughter of a palace maid. They had dreamt of marriage, but one day, the girl vanished without a trace. The prince believed his father had something to do with her disappearance, though the king repeatedly denied it. But now, all evidence seemed to point against the prince, that he had motive, opportunity, and anger. He had reason to kill Han to protect his secret, adding to the suspicion he had been missing from his dance rehearsals exactly when Han was murdered. The verdict came swift and merciless. The The prince was declared guilty and taken into custody. He tried to explain, desperately claiming he was in the forest during the incident, but no one listened. Everyone, except Cinderella. She stepped forward quietly, her voice filled with faith, saying she truly believed he could never do something so cruel. That one sentence brought a faint smile to the prince's face amid his despair. Cinderella begged Red to help. So Red turned to the king and asked calmly if he would free the prince if a witness appeared to confirm his presence in the forest. The king agreed reluctantly, and as if fate heard her, a witness did appear, a rather unfortunate-looking woman. However, before she could speak, the guards refused to let her in, mocking her appearance. Some even joked she looked like she had lost a fight with her own mirror. Red immediately scolded them, saying people should never be judged by their looks, especially when someone's life hung in the balance. Her sharp words silenced the crowd. The king allowed the woman to speak. She explained that she lived in a cave deep in the forest, and yes, she had seen the prince strolling there, enjoying the scenery. Relieved, the king declared that his son was innocent and ordered his release. He dismissed the guests, saying the rest of the investigation would continue later. Cinderella and Red shared a smile of relief, but it was short-lived. The sound of the clock tower shattered their joy. Midnight was near. They rushed toward the exit, trying to escape before the magic faded. The prince called after her, begging her to stop, saying he needed to speak to her, but she kept running, and in the haste, one of her glass shoes slipped off and remained behind. Apologetically, she whispered a soft goodbye before vanishing into the night. The prince, now left with the shoe, picked it up like a clue to a dream he wasn't ready to wake from. And then, as the clock struck 12, the spell broke. The carriage turned back into a pumpkin, the horses into mice, and the girls tumbled to the ground. Not exactly the fairy tale exit they'd imagined. Cinderella brought Red home to rest. But in the middle of the night, Red woke up to strange noises outside. Following the sound cautiously, she discovered palace guards searching for someone. Hidden behind a tree, she realized they were hunting none other than Yumi, Cinderella's other stepsister. Yumi spotted Red and begged for help, saying she was being accused of murdering Han. Without hesitation, Red decided to help her. When asked why everyone suspected her, Yumi began to explain in trembling words that she had received a letter from Han himself, offering to style her hair for free. Excited by the chance, she had gone to meet him that day, unaware that the invitation would change her life forever. But just then, out of nowhere, someone attacked her from behind, and everything went dark. When consciousness returned, she found Han's body lying right in front of her. To her horror, the very stone that had killed him was clenched in her own trembling hand. Panic raced through her like fire through dry grass. She had no idea what to do. In a desperate attempt to save herself, she dragged Han's body through the woods and tossed it in front of a passing carriage, hoping the blame would fall on someone else. Sadly, her plan was as effective as a paper umbrella in a storm. The guards had already spotted her. From that moment on, she had been running for her life, hiding in the wilderness until fate brought her face to face with the guards once again, who had come to capture Yumi. Red, always the self-proclaimed moral guardian of the village, declared her guilty on the spot and ordered the guards to arrest her. Poor Yumi left crying, while Red, with an oddly satisfied smirk, later confessed to the general that Yumi was actually innocent. She had only accused her for the sake of teaching her a small lesson. Apparently, pettiness too can wear a hero's cloak. When Cinderella arrived with the general to investigate Han's house, she found a broken heel from a glass shoe lying there. The moment Red touched it, a sudden vision flashed before her eyes, revealing that the real killer was none other than Cinderella herself. The scene cut there, and the story moved to Cinderella's home, where she stood nervously as the prince, along with the general, arrived to test the mysterious glass sandal and find the girl from the royal ball. As soon as she slipped her foot into it, the shoe fit perfectly, making her glow with delight. She was certain of her destiny as the prince's wife was finally sealed, but the prince shattered that dream faster than a mirror dropped on marble, ordering her arrest immediately. Just then, Red stepped in and explained that the sandal Cinderella wore wasn't the one she had left at the palace. The real one, whose broken piece had been discovered at Han's house, pointed straight to her guilt. Cinderella froze in disbelief, denying the accusation with tears streaming down her face. Why, she asked, would she ever harm Han? Red calmly explained the truth. On the night of the ball, Han had met her in the forest after visiting the prince. Captivated by her beautiful hair, he invited her home under the pretext of styling it for free. His real intention, however, was far darker, as he wanted to cut it off and keep it for himself. In self-defense and fear, Cinderella struck him down, killing him in the process. Later, to divert suspicion, she forged a letter in Han's name and sent it to her sister Yumi, luring her into the same trap. When Yumi arrived, Cinderella knocked her unconscious, but made one crucial mistake. She attacked Yumi with her own sandal, leaving behind a broken fragment at the crime scene. Realizing this later, she went out that evening, buried the broken shoe along with her dead dove, and unknowingly crossed paths with Red at that very time. Cinderella stood in stunned silence as every piece of her deception unfolded before her, yet she still refused to admit guilt. That's when Red called upon the White Witch, who confirmed she was the one who had given Cinderella the glass shoes, the first pair on the morning of the ball, and the second when she met her again in the evening alongside Red. By then, Cinderella's appearance had changed completely under the spell of the Black Witch, which was why the White Witch failed to recognize her. After thanking both witches for their help, Red watched them leave. As dawn broke, the magic of the morning shoes, the same pair connected to the broken piece at Han's house, expired, revealing their true form. It was now undeniable. Cinderella was the killer. Tears welled in her eyes as she finally confessed, admitting that in anger and fear, she had taken Han's life. She hadn't imagined that even after carefully erasing every trace of evidence, fate would outsmart her so elegantly. The general ordered the guards to take her away, ending the long chase for justice. The prince turned to thank Red for solving the case so brilliantly, but she gently reminded him that one mystery still lingered unsolved. When the prince asked what she meant, Red summoned a young woman, the same one who had once testified on the prince's behalf at the palace. To everyone's surprise, she was his first love. The prince's heart nearly stopped as he asked where she had been all this time and why she appeared so frail. With quiet sorrow, she explained that a year earlier, Han had attacked her too. She had tried to escape but failed, and in the struggle, his scissors had slashed her face after cutting her hair. Feeling disfigured and unworthy, she had vanished from the prince's life. The prince, overcome with emotion, told her that beauty had never defined his love. She would always be the most beautiful to him because she was his first love. That single moment of reassurance rekindled her spirit. Seeing them reunited, Red felt a rare warmth in her heart. The story closed with their wedding. The prince married his first love, managing even to convince the king after what must have been a royal-level debate. Both of them sincerely thanked Red for bringing them together, and with a smile brighter than dawn, she wished them a lifetime of happiness before walking away. In the final scene, it was revealed that Red continued her journey across distant lands, determined to solve many more untold stories waiting in the shadows and, with her luck, perhaps argue with destiny itself along the way.